Hello BookTube and AuthorTube. I have a NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month update. I'd originally wanted to wait until Friday, have an update every Friday with the final wrap up the last day of the month, but I feel in the mood to have a discussion about my writing, so I'm filming an update today. So far I have 5,238 words. And I'm not happy with the project. Ultimately, I failed at the world building. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I completely botched the world building. I had hoped that I'd have the world already kind of stuck in my head and I could just channel it, and it's not working. The main protagonist is far too modern in tone and speech for a more or less traditional sword and sorcery type setting. Even though I'm not necessarily one of those readers or writers who are hidebound to certain formalities, where you have a story set in a medieval period, the character's diction and ways of speaking are period appropriate. I'm not necessarily a firm believer in that. I do like a bit of anachronism stew. When I eventually get around to filming the sword and sorcery tag, if I can find a video of it where I can find the questions, I do like He-Man and She-Ra, which mixes a more medieval, for lack of a better term, pre-modern type setting. They use swords, shields, their style of dress, their political systems, while at the same time having really fantastic science fiction level technology, flying machines and automobiles and laser guns. That it makes an interesting mashup. But for me, it's always been, well, how does that work? How do you keep that style, that pre-modern style, with a more advanced futuristic style technology base? I've never quite figured that out yet. That's like one of my big world building challenges. But to get back to NaNoWriMo, the project was a more traditional sword and sorcery. And the character he's a contemporary. So I need to really think about, do I need to change the character, or is there a way to adapt the general plot to a more contemporary setting? I think there is. I'm pretty sure there is a way I can do that. But should I completely abandon what I've done, or keep working at it, and maybe as I work my way through this version of the story, I can figure out other ways of telling the story. An example is the main protagonist, so in the story is a student magician, a student sorcerer, who is working or learning under a master apprentice style educational system. And his master is murdered, and the young sorcerer flees to this city to seek shelter with his master's friends. I kind of, in the more modern version, I'm like, well, there's this character, and then there's the, I guess you can call him the character, the Romance of the Week, who is working under very similar circumstances. He's out, his parents, his grandparents were murdered by the same sorcerer who went after the protagonist's teacher. So why not combine the two into the same character? And then switch the main protagonist to a character who's already in the city, who has other things going on. So I am excited about that possibility, and I'm interested to see where else I can change things once I'm finished with this project and kind of reworking it into this other project. I mean, even though it's kind of going to be like a month of wasted work, but yeah. And I can perhaps find ways that I can salvage the setting and the characters in this specific version of the project to something else. And also taking the time to do proper world building. And like with Sword and Sorcery, you can do a bit of impressionistic world building, where like the broadest strokes of the culture and politics and history and style and look of the world is left up to the reader's imagination, generally because Sword and Sorcery are not terribly long stories. I mean, they're usually short fiction, but I mean, when they're novels, they are usually on the far shorter end, which 50,000 words does look appealing. I mean, 50,000 words is not a terribly long novel, so it would work. But I don't think it quite works here. And I don't know if that's necessarily because I'm not as interested in the traditional focus of a Sword and Sorcery, which is usually on the sword wielder, the barbarian or the knight or whoever wields the sword, versus the usually more villainous sorcerer. I tend to flip that. I'm far more interested in the sorcerer than I am in the warrior. So in the mornings, I've been working on ideas for the more modern version of it. I'm not entirely sure if, a completely contemporary setting where this story takes place on Earth would work, or if I could maybe another setting that's a bit more similar to Earth or something. I haven't quite disfigured that out yet. But I do know, as far as the setting of the current project, I do need to go back and do a significant amount of world building and re-world building, I guess. And in a way, I think I'm annoyed with myself because I am a big world builder. I really like intricately world-built stories, and stories where a lot of thought has gone into the world building, and that I skimped on that kind of annoys me. So yeah, so I need to really sort of redo that and think seriously about secondary world fantasy. When I am working on secondary world fantasies, fantasies that are constructed wholesale, that I need to really think about the world building, think about all the elements I need to think about to make a fully realized world, or nearly fully realized world. And that is usually not as focused on in like writing books. I know I mentioned in my writing book tour Timothy Hickson's or Tim Hickson's on writing and world building, and I don't think any of the other, fantasy, how to write fantasy and science fiction by Philip Athens also has a world building bit, but yeah, there's not a whole lot. The focus on the world building tends to get a lot of short shrift, and I really need to think about all of the elements I want in the worlds I create. So, and I need to do that before I actually start writing, because while not having the plot outlined or a rough plot outline can be fatal, so can how am I going to describe this ruin, or how are these characters adapting these ruins to be re-inhabitable. What's the politics of this city-state? What are the politics of this kingdom? It's all, I need more concrete ideas and a concrete plan. And I don't have it, so I'm going to try to work my way through it, hit the 50,000, and then go back and rework it into a more contemporary setting, the project into a more contemporary setting, and then work on world building this setting. And maybe I will have a new idea to come up with that. And I do have a lot of ideas. Now, that's the update for November 4th. There's every possibility I could have some fantastic writing days tonight through the rest of the week before my next update, and I could be completely changing my tune. You never know. So that's, I think, about all I have for today. Wish me luck no matter what happens, and I will update you with my progress in a future, in probably Friday or Saturday, one of the two. And I'll probably, if you follow me on the National Novel Writing website, I don't know if I'm going to update on there, because I don't know exactly how to update my progress. I tried it last night and a little bit this morning, and I couldn't make heads or tails of how I am supposed to update people, so I'm going to be doing it on here. So, thank you, BookTube. See you soon.